The condition stated in paragraph 2 indicates that either the tubing or the packer has lost mechanical integrity. Do you know what happens when the tubing and the packer have a problem? The waste migrates upward. It migrates up. The above stated conditions present an eminent danger to public health or safety and are likely to result in immediate substantial damage to natural resources. It is hereby ordered that King Oil immediately cease operations. Do you know when this was fixed? This order was issued in 1991. I have a compliance letter here that was issued December 27th of 1994. So what I'm saying is, if you think that you have a regulatory agency that's doing a sufficient job of protecting public health and safety, please know that they operate in a way that is supposed to encourage industry to get back in compliance. There's very rarely enforcement on these orders to shut down when there are things that are a threat to public health and safety. When you were talking about the $116,000 that the school was going to profit, was that you, Tish? Somebody did. That was like a knife through my heart, because when I had to organize a community group in Meigs County to try and fight off the next 5 power plants, when we already had people dying, we had the highest lung cancer death rate in the state, shortest life expectancy according to Harvard University. We had the highest asthma rate in the state, and our families and children were least likely to have health insurance. What that translates into when you have polluting industries, whether it's fracking, whether it's injection wells, whether it's coal-fired power plants, is that your exposure to what's going to make you sick is increased. Your ability to get early detection or treatment is down. We don't have a hospital in our entire county. And it means that more people are going to die. In the community group that I organized, there were 2 women who were maybe 10 years older than me, and they both lost their husbands the same day in the same hospital to cancer. And what Sue said was that if her husband had lived 1 more month, that they would have exceeded their lifetime maximum benefits on health insurance. They'd already spent $1 million trying to get him well. That's one person. It was the same thing for Lula's husband, okay? I lost 6 neighbors to cancer like that. So I really want you to think about that. When I filed my appeal against AMP Ohio for putting another power plant in my community, there was one question I asked them. I got standing, I was the same as an attorney there, and I was allowed to ask questions, so believe me, I asked. My one question to them, they kept talking about a thing called break cost. That's when it gets too expensive to build it. They were talking about dollars. So when it was my turn, they said, Ms. Young, have you got any questions? I said, yes, I do. I said, I'd like you to go over that break cost thing again. And I'd like you to tell me if you have an equivalent term that applies to human life. Got really quiet. And they said, no, we don't. I said, did you do a human health study? And they said, no. So what I would like to ask you to do is to think about this, not just in terms of some pittance of a royalty that's going to come in, because you don't know what you're going to get with that, and you don't know how many people are going to get sick. One thing I'd like to share with you from the records on this well is the annual reporting that they're supposed to do. Injection wells are much more profitable than fracking wells. We have one, the one that I told you that got excavated twice after I started asking questions. They make about $6,000 to $8,000 a day. That money doesn't come back to the community, and it employs 1 person. That's typical. Okay, except some accept a lot more waste than what that one is. If you'd like to look at this, this is one page that's taken out of a multiple-page report that comes out each year. And they started doing that after I started going up and auditing their annual reports to see how much brine they were accepting. Because they don't have monitors to measure this. This is all voluntarily reported by industry on some of these old wells, on most of these old wells. On the one that you see there for Medina where it says NY, that means not yet. One of the violations that you have on that well, and this is very typical, is that for many, many years they have not even reported how much has been injected. Are they even reporting it at all? Are they paying any taxes? Are they paying that 20 cents a barrel that they're supposed to for out-of-state waste, or 10 cents a barrel if it's generated here by your house? We don't know. That's another thing I'm getting ready to take a look at. Why are, if this is a law that they are supposed to tell us, not even measure it, if they're supposed to write it down on a piece of paper and tell us how much waste that they're accepting at these sites each year, We have a right to know that, and we're not getting that. So I'd like you to think about your water a little bit. I don't know why you have to go all the way up to Lake Erie to get it, but I have an email I'd like to forward to you from somebody who lives up there who's working on issues in Lake Erie. And I can tell you that that water supply is extremely vulnerable. If you lose that water, where are you going to get water locally? Where are you going to get your water? I want you to think about that, because this is being targeted not only for water withdrawals, there's pollution and contamination going into it. And so think about that. You know, if we can't get it piped all the way down here from Lake Erie, where are we going to get our drinking water? It's hard to live without water. I come from a long line of farmers, and I can tell you, if you want an expert on water, you ask yourself, a 7th-generation subsistence farmer. These are some pictures I'd like to share with you. So I want you to think about some impacts here. I want you to think about your drinking water. I want you to think about your air. There's a lot of volatile organic compounds that come off of this. And I want you to think about risks to your community in terms of accidents. Yesterday, I got 2 emails. I got one from a girl that I met over at Rio Grande College, where they'd asked me to come and speak, whose family is from Cadiz. And she sent me a picture that shows, it looks like the whole horizon is lit up, and there is a flame shooting up. And they were saying it was like a mile up in the air, and nobody knows what it is. And she asked me, can you help me find this out? It's hard to get information. I said, have you got the API number? She's like, what's that? That's the well number that's going to tell you which records to ask for and work from there. These are pictures last night that I got from West Virginia. Now, I know they're not high quality because somebody snapped them on their cell phone. This is a truck. I believe it's a brine truck. It looks for all the world like a brine truck. This flipped over in the river.
Wow.
And there's the West Virginia DEP and the firefighters trying to deal with it. They don't know what's in that truck. They don't have any idea. And they asked me if I'd help them. So I'm going to. Check into, please, the ODNR website. They have a slew of material safety data sheets. You were, okay, what you were saying about the chemicals. Now, I went into that because I wanted to see what exactly they were hauling into my community. Because I had done records reviews to try and find out what was in the waste. Even the attorney I worked for sent a request to the Department of Natural Resources asking for any results that they had on brine that was being delivered to these injection wells. They said, we have none. As of a year ago, they tested brine, like from old vertical wells, but as far as the stuff coming in from the fracking sites that actually has the chemicals in it, they had never tested it even once. So we reached a little farther, went down to West Virginia, drove down to Charleston and looked at their records. They actually have a requirement that we don't have here in Ohio, where they have to test at least 1 load of brine going into that injection well as a prerequisite before they will issue a permit. They don't do that here in Ohio. But it gave me some stuff to look at. They had a pH of 1.5 in one of those samples. A 1.5. Now, when I got into the MSDS sheets to see what on earth would be making a pH of 1.5, you cannot tell from the way they're listed on that site what is being used from what company and going to what well. You can't track it that way. The only thing I can do is look at the entire list, from everybody from Halliburton to the well services company to try and glean that. What I found is that they're using a lot of chemicals that are classified as hazardous waste. They are hazardous waste, but they aren't treated as that because they're oil and gas waste, and they're completely exempt under that Halliburton loophole. They don't even have to tell you what they are. They just say it's a proprietary blend. You'll see that over and over, proprietary blend, proprietary blend, proprietary blend. Do you have any firefighters or EMS people here? If this accident had happened in your community last night, is there anybody who's trained to know what's in this fracking waste to be able to extinguish the fire or treat somebody who's been exposed? I'll tell you what I saw in the MSDS sheets, and it was a little scary. Some of these chemicals were not to be mixed with water. You had different ways that you had to extinguish fires with the different chemicals they're mixing to put into this toxic soup. If you were exposed to this stuff, in some cases you were supposed to immediately induce vomiting. With other chemicals, you were supposed to avoid it at all costs. Because if you inhaled it, it could eat through your lungs.
We're going to have about 2 more minutes, and we're going to have to move on. But I just want to let you know that.
Okay, what would you like me to share with folks?